We're testing a new system today, so we're hoping it's going to work okay. Much like the Nuggets are hoping that they can run a successful test. No, they already passed it. That doesn't work. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen. We appreciate you guys joining us on whatever platform you want, from YouTube, where you can join the show and be part of the live show, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Get Casts. There's so many options for you. Check it out wherever you want to listen. Make sure to leave us those 5-star reviews. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. His name's Adam Mares. He's director of content over at DMVR. We can catch the pre and post game shows before every Nuggets game, as well as daily shows on the regular. Lots of great content. Check it out over at DMVR. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. Happy Friday to you. All right. Oh, wow. The guy's audio sounds amazing. Let's go. Very excited.
I'm telling you, we're on a new platform. Finally. I think our problems are well behind us.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
Because I'm telling you, I've used this platform with DNVR. It's way better.
Damn it, Bobby says Matt Moore and Adam Mares of the Murray and Jokic of basketball podcasts. So that's very kind of you. I don't think I have Murray's competitive fire. I think that's.
You do. You do.
That's the missing part of us. On today's show, we're going to talk about the game versus the Suns.
Did you forget?
Yeah, I just forgot it. I forgot that is a thing that existed. Sorry, I should call it. We're going to talk about the game versus the Suns earlier this week, real quickly in segment 1. On segment 2, we're going to preview the Clippers game. What does it mean for if Jokic is going to miss the game?
A couple of people made this comment. Jokic is still questionable while y'all lying. Maybe I screwed something up in the description. I don't remember.
I mean, I would tell you that there's a number of reasons why I don't think Nikola is playing. We can talk about them in segment 2. And in segment 3, we're talking about the Western Conference, and not necessarily we talked a few shows about the Nuggets and if they need to trade and all that conversation. We're going to talk about what does it mean for the Nuggets if other teams in the Western Conference make a trade, as well as talk about some of the front office turmoil, drama going around the league, and kind of how to put the Nugget stuff into perspective there. All right, so Adam, let's go ahead and start here. I told you this pre-show, and you're like, I have some stuff I want to talk about. So you're going to steer on talking about the Suns game because I got nothing. I got nothing on that game. So I'm happy to.
Yeah, come on, man. I'm telling you, and you're going to take this as a bit of an insult, but I can always tell. There's basketball to be talked about in every basketball game, even the dumb ones. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like this game. Was it like, oh my God, adjustments were made that made the difference? Like, no, this game, they could have. But here's the thing. You went to that Lakers game and they won with bad process. And I think they've had great process for 2-3 weeks. Like they've been growing more and more connected. They could have beat that Phoenix Suns team that didn't have, Torrey Craig was the second best player in that game. By the way, what was he, 4-4 from 3 or something? Like somehow Torrey Craig always goes off. But they could have beat that team with bad process, but they didn't. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was a meaningful, if they would have won both the Lakers game and the Sun game with bad process and, tonight MPJ decided to take 29 shots and like this, that, I would have been like a little bit of like, it would have been bothersome. But I thought in that game, Denver got back to playing very connected. Like it was a great brand of basketball against a hopeless team, but that's better. It's better to win the right way. And so to me, that was an important note.
I don't disagree with that at all. I thought it was a good process. I think, there's some comments in the chat about, look, they've played down to their competition so much through the years, and they're doing that less this year, right? Like since the Pistons game, they haven't dropped a game at home, much less one to a team. And like they've had various situations where they could have played down, and they haven't. Right. You mentioned like the Lakers process game. Your process probably isn't going to be great every single game, and finding ways to win when your process isn't good is part of the story of the regular season. I know. I get what you're saying.
That wasn't like a finding ways to win. Yeah. That was we're going to win anyway.
Yeah, very, very true. So like, yeah, and like there was stuff in there. Like Zeke was amazing. I thought in the Suns game, he played really great in that game. I think like obviously like Bones, getting more confident, all those types of things is important. So there's a lot to kind of like, I think there's stuff to take away from the Nuggets. I don't know that there's anything that I take away from that game that I haven't taken away from like the entire homestand. And I mean, look, I don't think that it's like, well, look who they played. I would say like, look around the league again, like look around you, Helen. We're at the threshold of hell. Like the Thunder waxed the Sixers last night in Philly.
I know.
That same Suns team beat the Warriors on the night before in Golden State, where Golden State has been the best team in the league and as far as advanced metrics go at home. So like the fact that Denver is playing well enough to where they're, knock on wood, invulnerable to some of this stuff right now is really, it's honestly a lot of it. You talk about process. It's a testament to the work that they've put in during the homestand on fixing their process, because this team loses to that Suns team, or at least it's close, if they play back in late October, early November.
And I'm telling you though, Matt, because one of my favorite teams, I brought them up a million times on this podcast all time, is that 2014 Spurs team. And that was a team that like didn't just play connected basketball. They were the most connected I've ever seen a team play. They really were a hive mind team that just worked together. And to me, it was a team that like coalesced throughout the course of the season, approached the playoffs, and then became like, you can't knock us out of rhythm. And that's why when I see games like the Lakers one, it doesn't like, it's a small thing. I'm only using this as context, but it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, you can't do that. Like you have to like keep developing and refining this thing until it becomes second nature to you. And that's why I love that Denver was able to, in my opinion, bounce back into rhythm in this game, in that game, and win that way. And by the way, like I know this is going to sound weird, the Nuggets won that game easily, right? I mean, they were up 20 going into the fourth. It actually should have been more. I'm telling you, Phoenix hit some like Okogie comes in and hits some crazy stuff. Torrey Craig hit banks a three in from straight on. Like the first period, I thought the Suns had probably 15 points that I was kind of like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. And Denver still was up at that point. So to me, it was a very, very encouraging game. Two other things. You said there's nothing. Those are things we've been seeing for the last 2 weeks. Michael Porter Jr. had 2 dunks in this game, and they look like deliberate dunks to me, meaning I'm not saying he listens to the show. I'm not saying any of this stuff. But he was asked the other day in practice about, hey, getting to the rim and finishing, as your athleticism been there. And he was like quick to be like, it's coming back. Like, I feel fine. Like this, whatever. I think as the year goes on. The 2 dunks he had to me felt like, you know what? I could shoot the 3, but I'm going to try to get to the rim this time. I just want to try something else out. Like use this game as practice time on being more aggressive. And that's such a big thing to me. They weren't like super impressive athleticism dunks, but they were determined dunks. And to me, that was an important stick out. I think he's got 6 or 7 on the year. So to get 2 in one game is pretty big.
I agree. I think that's looking better. I don't know how to counterbalance that with the 3-point shooting starting to regress.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is like part of it is like that's promising. The 3-point shooting, but I think a lot of it it's really funny that MPJ needed to do all of the things to fit onto this team so that he could play, because they would make him a better player for the Nuggets and be more of a winning player. And he's done all of those things, all of them. And now I'm like, it's not criticism for him. It's more of just like the Nuggets need to start working more on like letting him like develop into a star, because like he has a lot more talent than what he honestly gets to show right now.
I agree.
And that's a tough balance, right? He honestly looks to me a lot of the time like he's the guy trying hardest to stay in the role, to like head down, do the right thing, all of that kind of stuff.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
I think there's 2 things on that point, though, because I'm with you. I feel like this is part of like with Denver's ceiling go higher than this. Part of it is Michael Porter has a lot less to give. They just have to figure out where it fits in. And athletically, I think it fits in like not just the dunks, but the rebounds. His rebounding has been better. He's been stealing rebounds from centers lately just from out jumping them. But number 2, and this is my last point on why I think this game was interesting, and it's actually the biggest point. Over the last few games, but in last game more so than ever, I thought Jamal Murray took the reins of the second unit.
Yeah.
He didn't say, Bones Highland, you're the point and I'll play off of you, or I'll try to fit into you and we'll try to mesh. He basically played that game, I thought, as Bones, you fit off of me. This is now my unit. I'm going to run it. And you're a big part of that. Like it really became a two-headed monster there in that second quarter where both of them were kind of attacking. Both of them were on fire. Bones had 5 threes in that start of second period stint. So Bones was fantastic. But Bones almost does a better job. Like Bones is always aggressive. He's wired that way. And I thought Murray kind of taking the reins of that allowed them to get the most out of them. It was a bad Phoenix team, but not. So I want to caveat that. But nonetheless, if you look at how does the rotation become successful, Michael Porter getting to play more of his minutes with Nikola, I think is good for him because then he gets to become more of a second option, expand some of that you're talking about where he can maybe look more to be more aggressive and expand some of his role with Jamal off of the court. But that works when you have Jamal and Bones being this two-headed monster that is led by Jamal Murray.
I like that adjustment a lot. I like Bones off ball quite a bit. I like him as a secondary creator quite a bit. I like him in that role substantially. I wonder, I don't know if this is the answer. I do kind of wonder if they can figure out how to implement some of that stuff when Bruce is on the floor. Bruce, Bones, no Jamal.
Oh, okay.
Is to try and because Bruce has kind of talked about how he feels really comfortable running point. Yeah. And I also feel like Bruce in that role, I want to move Bruce more towards guard and away from small forward because we've seen the size mismatch problems. It also allows there's just no reason for those Bruce Bones combos to be as bad as they've been. And so I think I wonder if moving Bones to more off ball, which it's kind of weird because they were better when he moved on ball last year. But this year I just think these things are not linear and it's all dependent on what personnel you have on the floor. I think they might be better a little bit here with Bones off ball.
I'll say this though, the 3-guard lineups are bad as starting and closing lineups. And this is the big complaint I had was it was tough because Denver was going to that as a starter. When you start to stagger, generally speaking, most teams, 28 out of 30, the stagger has compromises. Like Denver's stagger has compromises, right? They're not perfect. So most of the time, I think you can get away with a 3-guard lineup. In fact, teams still play 3-guard lineups. A lot of teams play a lot of 3-guard lineups. It's just very rare that you start or close games with them. And that's why, to me, I'm not as worried about that piece about Bruce playing that in those minutes. Nonetheless, your point stands that I'm curious if you can get the same because Bruce's skill set isn't quite as top dog, give me the ball, I'm going to run the show. He doesn't quite have that skill set, but maybe there can be a little bit of that. We'll see.
Let's take a break. We'll come back. I want to make a quick point about Malone after the break, and then we'll get to previewing the Clippers game, and we'll approach the question of whether or not Nikola Jokic is going to play in the game versus the Clippers, what it means, what's the team's approach, all of that and more when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You got the NFL playoffs this weekend. You can put all sorts of props in on that one, combine them with some NBA ones, get in on the Nuggets as well. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll score more or less than their projections, and you can win up to 25 times your entry on your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people that have got sheets and sheets and sheets of entries. It's just you versus the projections. They offer projections on any sport available, stuff like women's college basketball, WNBA. Those markets are often really soft. Esports, NASCAR, tennis, disc golf, Eurobasket. You can find edges in these type of things if you're willing to do the research and have the time, and it's all obviously all fun to play on PrizePicks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to go to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you today by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories, you got to try a Built Bar. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, which is amazing, peanut butter brownie, which is really good, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, but with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars at built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Head to your nearest Walmart today, head to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff. Or if you're Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You'll thank me later. Check them all out at built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Matt Moore alongside Adam Mares. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Friday heading into the weekend. Adam, before we get to the Clippers game, I want to make one more note from the Suns game, even though I said I didn't have anything on that game. It's more of a continuation of a few things. Fewer rage timeouts lately. Just like a little bit. Like, he still has them. No, I'm serious. Like, he has not, and I guess here's the thing. You look at the Rockets game earlier this season where they waxed him and he was all pissy.
He had one, though, in this game.
He's going to have them. Like, we're never going to get to a point where there are 0 rage timeouts, Adam Mares. Come on. Like, we've been doing this long enough. You're never going to get to a point where he's not going to have a rage timeout. There's also been times when I thought I forget if it was this one or the Lakers game, where I thought he was throwing a rage timeout, and instead he was just putting the bench in. Like, he was clearing the bench. And I was like, oh, like, not only is he not pissed enough to not go back to the starters, but he's actually like, all right, we got this. He's just, and his attitude pregame and postgame has been,
the vibe around the team is great. I mean, and Malone, honestly, I've always said this, you can tell how he feels about the team given his approach to media, because he's a little grouchy and you can tell, like, oh, they had a bad practice or something's going on he doesn't like. But he's been, for the last couple of weeks, I think, very relaxed, very happy, very positive, very optimistic. And not just him. I think the whole team. I mean, Bruce Brown, not a week ago, said that this was the best locker room he's ever been around and the vibe's great. Michael Malone, Harrison Wynn did a great story for thednvr.com where he talked about, Michael Malone said when he came into halftime, I don't remember what game it was, the entire locker room was clapping over a stat that he gave. He's like, I've never seen a locker room clap before, like in a halftime speech. So the team clearly is feeling themselves right now, but Matt, they're feeling themselves for the right reasons, and I think that's probably why Malone is not rage timeouting as much.
Yeah, there's like a whole circular thing here, right? Like, they're winning, so they're playing better defense, which makes Malone happy and more relaxed, which makes the vibe better, which makes them win more. Like, there's a whole, like, they're all kind of feeding into each other. So that said, let's go into the game versus the Clippers on Friday night. It's an ESPN game. This is the part that's interesting to me. So Jokic pops up on the injury report yesterday. Here's the entire injury report. Bruce Brown's probable with calf soreness. Jeff Green's still out. Jokic is questionable. Jamal's probable with the ankle. Peyton Watson's out with an adductor strain. So the significant parts there are Bruce and Jamal are probable. Jokic is questionable. Usually when you move a player the day before to questionable right wrist injury management, usually that's an indication that you're resting that player for that next game. The league gets real Michael Maloney about teams resting players on,
as they should,
on national TV games. Like, they basically said, like, we don't care what you do on the Tuesday back-to-back in Orlando, but the TV partners, we're trying to sell the new media deal. The partners paid billions of dollars for this. We need you guys to play. So I guess, like, here's my thing. The Clippers opened as a favorite in this game. And I am telling you that as somebody that covers the market in the full-time job, that is an indication that the market believes that Nikola Jokic is not going to play in this game. The Nuggets would be favored.
The market also usually knows, like, this isn't like, the betting public. Like, usually there's something like I'm just trying to clarify that a lot of times, like, the lines move that way because there's some kind of information somewhere.
Yeah, I would say that, except that, like, oftentimes this is like a line will pop and then it'll get hit offshore, and then what happens is, like, one book it'll pop offshore, like what you think the line should be if he's going to play. It immediately gets hit by big money, public, and like just like large big money groups, and that winds up impacting the U.S. market.
I saw people on Reddit or somewhere were speculating that Jokic didn't appear in any of the photos, the travel photos.
Yeah.
They always post the team, and Jokic and Murray were not to be found.
Yeah.
I think we're going a little too far there. Like, I love a good conspiracy theory. I'm all for it. It's January. Let's get crazy. But
I got to tell you, if they are resting him, I think this is brilliant. I said that they should do this on Wednesday. You're coming off this homestand. Everything's amazing. You beat the ever-loving snot out of the Clippers a week ago. Right. The Clippers have all of the motivation in all of the world. They're coming off of a bounce back. Finally, maybe we're getting things turned around here, win versus the Mavericks. You're at home. Like, this is a perfect game for Denver to be like, oh, no. Oh, sorry. Guys are out. Oh, you got the win. Congrats. Oh, we'll see you in the playoffs. Tough matchup. We'll get you next time, Clippers. And just, like, don't show them anything else. Like, only.
I mean, there's something to that, right? Like, does Denver need to figure out the Clippers?
No, I don't think so. I think that they know them.
Not saying that that's a guarantee they'll beat them. I'm just saying that they kind of know, like, okay, that's what they do. This is what we do. Like, all right. And I don't think you need to give a team like more looks at you to do this or that. So part of me understands it, but the national television piece is the part of it that's like Friday night marquee game on ESPN. Not going to play your top star, maybe your top 2 stars. If they don't play though tonight, Denver is on a 4-game win streak. They can make it 5, which would match their season high. I mean, they have 1 5-game win streak under their belt already. And then you come home against the Orlando Magic team, and then you have a Portland team after that that's reeling. Like, we always talk about this, Matt. The Nuggets never get big win streaks, almost never. It's like in this era. This is an opportunity. The way you get to 50 wins in a season, 55-plus wins, is win streaks. That's the way you do it. So there is a little bit of a Denver, if they win tonight, it might end up being 7, 8 games by the time they have to face an opponent that they're underdogs to. So if they don't play Yoke tonight, how do they get the win?
3-point volume. The Clippers surprisingly are a very low 3-point volume team this year, and they're a bad 3-point volume team for the opponent. Everything that's made them elite the last couple of seasons under Ty Lue is not the case this year. And honestly, most of us are pretty confused trying to figure them out night to night. Like, why did a team that set the NBA record for 3-point percentage 2 seasons ago just not take threes now? It's weird. It's very weird. It's not just like John Wall and Reggie Jackson. Like, there's weird stuff going on with their offense. So if the Nuggets come in and they just bomb from 3, if they're using passing offense to generate stuff, if they're able to attack, like, Zoo's going to play drop. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to switch. They're going to play drop with Zoo. And if Jamal's able to attack that effectively, then that can get going if Jamal plays, right? If Jamal doesn't play, then this obviously changes. If it's like Bruce and them, I think the answer kind of gets a little bit more complicated. I am kind of curious to see like what will happen. Their bench unit has had a really hard time, and the Nuggets bench unit has a lot of spacing now, given that they're playing Zeke, who hit that 3 in the last game, as you noted, and you were tweeting about his 3-point shot. And Blacko, obviously being able to run DHOs, and then Bones and Bruce Brown. So like if they can get an edge just by spacing the floor, because like the Clippers offense is going to be a lot of contested stuff. And if they miss some shots, the key one here is Denver probably goes in this game with the attitude of like, okay, we'll see what happens. And if the Clippers screw around and don't make shots, and all of a sudden Denver's able to, like, you get a lead if you're up at the quarter, now it's like, okay, like you can manage this. But I think pace and 3-point shooting are the keys for Denver being able to get a win if it's without Yoke.
If Yoke doesn't play, I bet they do start DeAndre Jordan. I wouldn't mind seeing them again. If this is a bit of a throwaway game, I know they never look at it that way. I wouldn't mind just seeing a switchy lineup versus the Clippers and throw it at Zeke Naji out there just to defend. Now they do have Zubats. He's a pretty big guy. Maybe you just get to those lineups early. They bring Zubats out the game early, so maybe you start a true big, a DeAndre, and then you go to that switchy lineup. But I just would love to see what Zeke and Vlatko look like guarding Kawhi Leonard tonight. Not because I'm like, oh, they're going to shut him down, but just like, hey, why not? Let's just see. That's another thing you put in your back pocket for, oh, Zeke actually guarded him really well, or Christian Brown guarded him really well in that game there. Like, he actually looked like that could be a weapon for us down the road or something. I wouldn't mind it.
Who would you start on Kawhi and who would you start on Zoo?
Well, I mean, you start Aaron Gordon on Kawhi, wouldn't you?
Okay. Let's say that you were running in the minutes that you were running. You were matched up with Kawhi, so the second quarter, Vlatko, Zeke. that combo, which one do you want on if they run Zoo out there in that segment?
Zeke.
Which one do you want on who? Kawhi and Zoo.
Zeke and Vlatko, because Vlatko, I think when it's Zubats, like it's not a guy that he's going to rebound. He's going to be around the rim. I think I'd rather see moving your feet and just try to put pressure on Kawhi Leonard. I'd rather see Zeke Naji. Plus, like if the trade deadline's coming up, if Zeke is a long-term piece for the Nuggets, it's because he is an elite defender on star players, not just like, oh, he can switch out onto guys. So I would want to see if he has that in him. I don't know. I'm super high on Zeke Naji's perimeter defense. That's one I'm not sure. Like, would I say, oh, he can guard Kawhi Leonard? I don't know. Let's find out.
Jokic's absence doesn't necessarily mean that Christian Brown will play more, and that's kind of annoying and dumb. If you're not playing Jokic in this game, you're automatically saying we are not focused on the win on improving our win percentage here. We're choosing to lower our win percentage. If you're choosing to lower your win percentage, then there's zero reason not to play Christian Brown, and that is under the assumption that you think Christian Brown lowers your win percentage, which I don't. So, like, especially if Jamal's out, which again, I kind of think he should be. I don't understand the idea of like, he sprained his ankle Wednesday. It's Friday.
Man, the league's really going to call Denver if Jamal's out too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I will say like, and here's what's weird with the injury management thing is they telegraphed it, right? Like what you do here is you don't say injury management. You say like, oh, he's questionable with right wrist soreness.
Yeah.
Like saying injury management is literally saying like, no, he's not hurt. He just needs a game off to rest it. And it's like, no, you have to say it hurts. If you say it hurts, the league can't do anything to you. League can't do anything if you're like, his wrist hurts. What do you want? So,
right.
Which
also Jokic never misses games, so you probably have a little bit of good faith built up. So
I also think it'd be like, I'm just imagining the conversation with the league office when it's like, well, his wrist hurts, and the Nuggets and like the league office is like sending them videos of like that whip pass that he threw, that no look whip pass that he threw to Aaron Gordon, being like his wrist hurts.
You know what though? No, you're right though. Let me push back though. I posted it. I don't like to complain about officiating online. That missed call that they had in the last game, if you go to my timeline, you can find on Twitter, where he gets hit on the wrist and then clobbered from behind. Two guys converge on him. Live, it looked like a super foul. Slow motion confirms it's a super foul, and he didn't get the call. If I'm the Nuggets, I just go, yeah, he heard it right there. On that no call, that he somehow didn't get as the MVP. And I don't even remember who the player was that comes flying through. I think it was against the Lakers. I think it was like Wendy and Gabriel. And you just go, yeah, he heard it then. No call, of course. MVP driving to the basket with two guys fouling him on one play.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll wrap up. We're going to talk a little about the Western Conference and not from the trade market, not from the perspective of the Nuggets, but instead, how should the Nuggets react and what do they anticipate with the rest of the league? We'll also talk a little about some front office drama going on around the NBA. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Pro football, basketball, all the sports, we got it all at betonline.net. I hit the lines early for wild card, and I'm sitting pretty right now. I found Bengals -5.5, and I then teased Bengals -6 as well before the Lamar Jackson news. So I've got them teased with a number of teams. The only one that I think I'm on the wrong side of is I bet the Cowboys, just because like the Buccaneers are terrible. That team's, I know it's Tom Brady at home, but they're terrible. If I'm wrong, though, I do have a Buccaneers Super Bowl ticket because I try and put as much money on the outcomes I hate as possible. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Friday. Hope you guys have yourselves a great weekend. We'll be with you. I'll have a post-game show. Adam might be around for tomorrow. We'll talk about the Clippers game regardless. Evan says this. Jokic is clearly hurt. His shooting percentage dropped 33% last game. That just doesn't happen. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. I just think that.
I think he's joking because he was 100% the game before, right?
Oh, that's right. I forgot that he was 100% there the last game. It's a good joke, Evan. You got me. You got me. Let's talk about the NBA trade market real quick, and then we'll get to some front office stuff. So one thing I can tell you is the Raptors are going to be sellers. The common consensus is that all their stuff is going to take way too much than most teams are going to offer, and they'll have to come to a decision of like what happens though is if they trade one guy, it makes it easier to lower the price on the others. Like if you move OG, it's easier to move Siakam. There is a lot of confidence, though, that Fred VanVleet is going to get dealt. That's the one guy that everyone's like, VanVleet's the one guy that they're willing to part with for multiple reasons, including his upcoming contract. And a team that I can tell you that is interested in Fred VanVleet is the team that the Nuggets are facing on Friday night, and that's the Los Angeles Clippers.
Why not? Just keep adding players. They don't have enough, players on their roster.
Kawhi's been after a point guard that he trusts for 3 years now. That's been like the going thing is that Kawhi's been like, you need to get a point guard. You need to get a point guard. And they got Reggie Jackson, and then they got John Wall. And I think the idea is like Reggie Jackson is PG's guy, and now they need to get Kawhi's guy. The deal would probably be like draft assets and Marcus Morris. I don't have what draft assets the Clippers have left after the PG trade in front of me. So they may not have any, but that's like what it would probably look like. Maybe Terrence Mann is a buy low candidate to play next to Barnes, which would probably be pretty good value there. I would say that adding a floor general 3-point shooting point guard that is like his assist numbers are really good. He's having a down season, but that's probably because of injuries. Like I think Fred VanVleet's going to be fine. That would definitely make the Clippers better, but you don't think that moves the needle for them at all?
I mean, they just have a lot of guys already. I mean, he's a good player. Here's the thing, man. I think that culture can be overstated. These things can be overstated. Talent's still important, but we've already seen this Clippers team like fold when the going got tough against Denver. To me, I watched this team and the way that they've approached all of it. And I just think like I'm not going to worry about them. They keep adding talent. They add a leader. Fred VanVleet, I guess, has a little bit of that in him, but like until they add that, I'm not going to buy him.
Some other kind of thoughts. The Suns continue to kind of percolate, and there's a lot of dissension there. There's just like a lot of like the vibes are bad, and Phoenix, everyone's hurt. I will say this, like, you remember how we were like, man, the vibes are not good in Denver. And then they started winning and it's like, oh, the vibes are great. That really is like, there is the shorthand thing that everyone does agree on, which is like, yeah, if you're not playing good. So like I asked somebody about the stuff going on in Milwaukee and I reported on a little bit. There's legitimate stuff going on with Milwaukee. Like the situation is not great there. I don't think that everybody's thrilled there, but one person did tell me like they're not winning and playing bad basketball. And when you're not winning and playing badly, you're not happy.
I will say this though. I first heard those reports before they started losing.
Yeah.
So
and the same is kind of true with Phoenix, right? The thing with Phoenix that no one can kind of figure out is it the ownership stuff? Is it the Monty Williams stuff in terms of like Jay Crowder today basically saying that he's upset his coaches didn't have his back and pushed him out the door? That's like really eyebrow raising for me because now you have that Monty Williams has had tension with DeAndre Ayton and Crowder. That's two guys that wanted to get paid that they have had disagreements with and have unhappiness surrounding. No one really knows what's going to happen. Like no one knows what's going to happen with Chris Paul. There's a lot of ways that this situation could go with Phoenix, but I do kind of wonder if Phoenix is going to look dramatically different after the trade deadline.
Would scale of 1 to 10, 10 being supremely shocked, how surprised would you be if Chris Paul was traded?
A 3.
That's super low, Matt.
I know. And that's not saying that I expect like 1 would be, I expect Chris Paul to be traded. That's the only situation. Like that's the only number on the scale where I would be like, yes, he's going to get traded. And very few players are ever 1 because I've done this too long where it's like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to deal him. Nope. Just didn't do it. I think Chris has a shelf life with teams. We've seen that consistently. Wore out the Clippers, wore out the Rockets. Didn't really wear out the Thunder. That was a different situation. And like, I'm a Chris Paul guy. I'm one of the few Chris Paul guys left in the world. But like, I can admit how much he wears on people. And I just kind of wonder for the long-term direction of the franchise, if you know that like they believe, and I think rightfully so, that Booker's a superstar and Booker's a guy you can build around. you have to constantly be looking at not just the short term, but the long term. And if you're like, wait, we no longer have a really good chance at winning the title. We have a chance at winning the title fully healthy, but we don't have a good chance at winning the title. That's when you start looking at maybe we should look at long-term moves. So I kind of wonder if like that's why I wouldn't be surprised if Chris moved on, just because Chris hasn't been as good this year. He's getting old. No one escapes it, 38. It's part of the equation here. And so they're looking at it. I think they have to still believe that they have the structure of a championship squad, and that they can make a deal that Chris still has enough value to get good return that would put them back into contention.
The bigger story, Brian Windhorst reported on it. They basically have the three owners going on right now as they transition from Sarver. They have the interim owner who's sort of in Sarver's stead. Remember, he's not just selling the team; he's also banned this year, so he can't be there. And then the new guy coming in, and this might literally come down to the wire. It sounds like they have the deals they want, like, in place in principle. Like, it sounds like the Suns have some things they want to do, and they're in a hold pattern. It's just, can they get these things finalized in time? We'll find out. But there's always chaos at the deadline. I can't imagine. I do not envy them being in a position where you're going to get a new owner, and then all of a sudden it's like, we got 3 days. We have to pull off all these trades that we wanted to do. That's a tough spot to be in, and things change. The carpet gets pulled right out from under you. They're in a tough spot.
I mean, one of the biggest issues is that there's more buyers than sellers this season, as far as like how I've been able to read the market. There's, usually there's an imbalance one way or the other, but it's really severe this year in terms of there's a lot of teams that are like, yeah, we really like to upgrade. And there's just not a lot of teams that are looking to move guys.
Let me say this though, Matt, because all those reports, I trust your sourcing and reporting on all this. The trade deadline's 5 weeks away. I think there'll be more sellers in 5 weeks than there are right now.
That's true.
And you just look at a team like Utah, and I'm not saying it's them, but they were the story 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. They're 21-23 now. You look at Minnesota, 20-22. You look at Portland. Remember how Portland was the number one seed like 4 weeks into the season? They're 19-22 right now.
Yeah, I can't figure out what happened to Portland. I've watched the games, and I don't know what's happened to Portland.
2-8 in their last 10. 2-8. 9-8 at home. My God, that's a scary number right there. If you're 9-8 at home.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's a chance that there's more sellers here in a couple of weeks than there are right now.
Josh is not wrong with this assessment. You're 10,398,499 of every team wanting a backup big and a 3 and a D wing.
3 and D wing, yes. I'll say this. I don't know if I said this the other day, but I've seen the Jakob Poeltl. Like, all Nuggets fans want Jakob Poeltl right now, and I don't understand it. He's a great player. If you got him for cheap or something like that, I would rather have him than DeAndre Jordan in terms of just like what he brought. But Denver has DeAndre, and I'm with you in this one way. The way he's been utilized over the last several weeks is right to me, meaning when you need a backup big, he can go in and play those minutes. The question is, do you always need a backup big? And to trade assets to get Jakob Poeltl, to me, I'm like, what are we doing? You're going to trade away assets to get a guy who's going to play like 8 minutes in half of the playoff games? Like,
that is just simply because you kind of commented on like taking the temperature of Nuggets fans the other day on Blacko and Zeke, and how most people are sold on Blacko and still like kind of cautious about Zeke. Like, that is the intersection of people that are cautious on Zeke and are out on DeAndre. And that's a significant, I think, portion of the fan base for understandable reasons. I don't necessarily disagree with it. So then it's like, we have to, like, it's really, I understand why. It's really frustrating when you're a fan of a team and you're like, we were plus 13 with Jokic and the game is tied. Like, I understand how frustrating that is. But yeah, look, everybody wants backup bigs.
To me, though, it's so much more about solving the bones question than it is about solving the backup big question. And those things
figured out. I think they figured out how to do it. It's just like, it's space everything.
A little bit, but there's also like, because somebody put in the chat, so Murray taking the reins on that and then letting Bones be a little bit more of a gunner secondary playmaker, to me works. And he's going to hit 5 of 5 3 some games, and you're going to win by 20. The game's going to be over in the second quarter because of those runs. That's what Bones offers you. Which, by the way, I put this on Twitter the other day. Did you see him and Jordan Poole's numbers side by side? They're identical.
Yeah,
it's hilarious to me when you say like, and if you talk to Warriors fans, this is what Jordan Poole has always been like. He's amazing. Oh my God, he's so frustrating. He's terrible. Like, you can't win with him. That's a lot of times that's the value of that player. They're hot or cold. They win you games. They blow the doors open, and every now and then they cost you a game, or they're so volatile. But Denver playing with Murray taking the reins, and then also the secondary option you mentioned with Bruce. In that case, can you give a KCP stagger? Can you give maybe an Aaron Gordon stagger there? Can you just put defense around Bones? If you're not going to give him Jamal, just give him as much defense as you can to mitigate the risk of is he not making shots tonight?
A couple things here I want to note. Joseph Zygmunt says DJ doesn't seem to mind not playing. That's true and very important.
Yep.
This team already has a number of guys that are like, would really like to get some more minutes. You don't need any more complications there. Like, you just don't. Like, they have a hard enough time. Like, they can't find minutes for Christian. Well, I'm sorry. Malone isn't playing Christian Brown enough, is what I'll say.
But even when Jeff Green comes back, see, Flacco, like, there's guys that are playable that are not going to play when the team is fully healthy, and like 2 or 3 of them. So to add a fourth would complicate.
And then Josh says DJ is too good for the culture to be traded. He's not wrong. Like, there's just been so many questions in post game about like DJ's influence, and everyone raves about him. Zeke actually the other day was really interesting. He was saying, he's like, I have never played drop before. So he's like, DJ's been great at teaching me what the keys are to doing that. He's like, I really was worried about it, and he's been a really big help with that. And he's like, he also said, he was like, he's like, I played more wing. DJ's been helping me with screen technique, and it's just like all of these little things that like, and DeAndre seems totally just satisfied and happy with the situation here.
I think there's no question. I think the DJ and Christian Brown questions are kind of hand in hand to me, and that is that early on, and I think there's something to this, by the way, outside of just like, I think there's layers to this, but Christian Brown wasn't playing when there was opportunity for him to play. Davon Reed was playing. They were playing other guys instead of him.
Right.
DeAndre Jordan was playing a lot of, and every night he's our backup center guy when I think there were better options. Over the course of the season, one, the guards have been healthy and Christian Brown's been out of the lineup. I think it makes sense. He's not a top 4 guard on this team. He's probably the 5th guard on this team. And then DeAndre Jordan has moved now into this alternate role, and I think that's appropriate for him too. And that's why when people say they want Jakob Poeltl, my whole thing is, what you want is you want the option to play a backup center 8 minutes in the playoffs when needed. And if that's what you're trading for, I just don't understand it, man.
You do not trade first round assets for 8 minutes in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You trade a first round pick for 20 minutes in the playoffs, right? Like the Celtics traded a pick for Derek White.
Right.
Key component, right? So these things are all kind of important. All right, let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets for Friday. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you guys again over the weekend. We'll get you a recap of the Clippers game, come Jokic or not. And then we'll be back on Monday. Full slate of shows. We'll recap the Sunday game, which is the Magic, I believe. Am I right on that? I think
Magic on Sunday.
Very excited.
Gary Harris versus Jamal Murray for the first time ever.
Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., Paolo Banchero.
Hey, I just told you the top storyline. I do like Franz Wagner. That's my guy. But listen to me, man. Gary Harris versus Jamal Murray has never happened.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. Got me sold. Excited for Sunday. I'm even willing to leave the wild card football to go watch that. All right. Let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Hit the rate, review, and subscribe buttons. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.